Long before she was a New York Times bestselling author, Lara Hardin was a mom in Northern California. From packing lunches to endless loads of laundry, her life was similar to many moms across the country, with one major exception.
On the outside, I looked like a typical suburban mom living in a cul-de-sac with an SUV, driving my kids to school and to basketball practice and after-school sports. And on the inside, I was living a double life. I was hiding my addiction.
Soon, Lara's addiction drove her to take desperate measures to fund her habit.
My prescription opiate addiction, like many people, became an addiction to heroin. And that was really the thing that blew up my life in less than a year. I lost all my money, was being spent on drugs. I started stealing and committing crimes to both fund my addiction and keep up the charade that I wasn't addicted. I knew my life was spiraling. I couldn't pay the mortgage, the repo men were coming, the power was turned off. I wasn't showing up for my life. Everything was closing in on me until the police knocked on my door and arrested me.
Ultimately, Lara was charged with 32 felonies, including fraud and drug possession. She faced up to 27 years in prison, but agreed to a plea deal that allowed her to serve much less time.
I was sentenced to a year in the Santa Cruz County Jail, and then a year of drug court after and probation. I had a lot of shame and guilt and fear while I was locked up, and when I got released, the shame was even greater. It was really hard when you've been keeping a secret for so long and everything blows up and you fail spectacularly and publicly, and you cause so much collateral damage, obviously, to my children and people in my community I cared about.
Behind bars, Lara says she was able to reconnect with her first love, writing.
While I was incarcerated, I started writing again. And writing was always how I made sense of the world growing up. When you're locked up, everyone has their individual skills in jail. And we were a community, and there were artists who drew pictures, and there were designers who built us furniture out of toothpaste and Tampax boxes. And there were great chefs who learned how to make amazing meals out of a hot pot of water and commissary food. My skill was writing, and so I started ghostwriting, helping women write letters to the judge so they could be put in long-term treatment instead of prison, or they could get passes to go to funerals or graduations. It felt good to be doing something that was valuable. In the outside world, I didn't feel like there was any part of me that was good and valuable.
After getting out of jail, Lara began building a career as a ghostwriter, working with everyone from Bishop Desmond Tutu to former Oprah's book club author Anthony Ray Hinton. After helping others tell their stories, Lara decided to speak her truth by writing a memoir.
I love ordinary people with extraordinary stories. I love championing the underdogs. I love the people who have struggled and risen above their circumstances. So I get to bring lots of those stories to the world in books.
And she has become an outspoken advocate for women's prison reform.
The Gemma Project, which is a nonprofit I co-founded, is gender responsive and trauma responsive services for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated women. I'm excited to advocate for them, to let women tell people what they need for reentry services and for programming, and they are often the last people on the prison budget. So I'm working to change that.
The Many Lives of Mama Love is a moving story of redemption. I am delighted to share this captivating memoir with all of you as my 104th book club selection.
I think the biggest takeaway from my story, took a decade for me to learn this or more, is that each of us is so much more than the worst thing we've done or the worst version of ourselves. And also that shame multiplies in isolation and it heals in community.